November is National Family Caregivers Month. That's a time to recognize and thank those people who care for family members, friends, and other loved ones. Caregiving, of course, can be really demanding and really stressful. So it's important for caregivers to take care of themselves as well. Here in Michigan, the Area Agency on Aging 1B provides a variety of support services for family caregivers. I spoke with the agency's coordinator of volunteer and caregiver services, Julie Lowenthal. So I think this is a really important topic right now. It's a really pressing topic in so many people's lives. And the way we think about caregiving and caregivers seems like it's changing quite a bit. I think we're understanding more about what caregiving is and how crucial it is. And we're really expanding the way we think about who is a caregiver and what support they need. It is National Caregivers Month. So tell us where you think we are and about the month that brings the focus to this issue.
That's a great question. So currently in the United States, there's actually 48 million unpaid family caregivers. And actually in Michigan, there's 1.7 million Michiganders who are family caregivers. 21% of all caregivers have reported that being a caregiver has actually impacted their own personal health and wellness. And there was actually a new statistic that just came out that $600 billion is how much caregivers are doing towards unpaid care in the United States yearly. And that's a massive number that most people are unaware of.
Yeah. I want to talk about specifically how we're defining those terms, because as I said, I think they're growing, they're expanding in a really important and healthy way. When you say caregiver, give me some examples of who you're thinking of there.
So family caregivers are anyone who is being unpaid. So they're not a professional caregiver, but they're being unpaid to provide care to their loved one. This can be someone who's doing it from a distance, so caring for a parent that's out of state and just, flying in a couple times a week or a couple times a month. It could be someone who's just handling financial things for their loved one, or it could be someone who's doing everyday hands-on care, like bathing and housing and, everything from transferring in and out of bed and in and out of wheelchairs, et cetera.
Yeah. And I think one way to think about this is we all, I think, at some point become caregivers. I can't think of anyone I know, in fact, who's not in one of those categories or situations at some point in their life. And I think it's probably safe to say that at some point we will all need caregiving. At some point in our lives, that really does get to the universality, I think, of this issue. It's not certain people or some places, it's all of us.
100%. And actually the baby boomer generation, which is one of our largest generations, is that generation that very shortly is going to need to be cared for. And that is something that us in the Aging Network are working very hard to make sure that there are resources available to that generation.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the things that you find yourselves doing at Area Agency on Aging, and you're now called Region 1B. Talk about what that means to support caregivers.
Of course. So quick thing, in Southeast Michigan, there are actually 3 area agencies on aging. My agency, 1B, serves all of basically a C around Wayne County. So we serve all of the counties but Wayne. And then in Wayne County, there are 2 agencies, the Senior Alliance and then DAAA, which is Detroit Area Agency on Aging. And then there are plenty of programs and services out there for caregivers. There's actually been a huge national push. Just last year, our federal government released, a bunch of funding things, as well as a catalog of how we can help family caregivers within our nation. At our agency, 1B, we have many wonderful programs and resources available to caregivers, and they can always find that information on our website. But I would like to highlight a few of those programs that are geared to caregivers.
Mhm.
December 9th, we are offering a caregiver partners passage through dementia workshop. And this will be a day-long workshop that helps caregivers gain knowledge, skills, information, and tools needed to take charge of their role as that caregiver, especially that caregiver caring for someone with dementia. We also offer a powerful tools for caregiving course, which is a 6-week educational program designed to help caregivers take care of themselves while caring for a relative or a friend. And then most recently, we actually launched a caregiver respite voucher program, which will provide short-term respite care for informal family caregivers of older adults. And what we found is that access to respite care can help reduce caregiver stress, avoid caregiver burnout, and also lead to better outcomes. And underneath that specific initiative, caregivers are going to be able to receive up to $575 towards in-home respite care.
Yeah. What kinds of things do you feel we need to change from a legislative or policy perspective to make this all easier for folks? I mean, as you point out, there's this uncompensated care is something that many families are dealing with. The stress and the burdens of that are not small. What kinds of changes would you like to see that would ease some of that for those of us who are caregiving?
Well, for one, a caregiver tax credit, I think, would really help caregivers, especially those that don't qualify for state or federal funding.
Mhm.
That will just help alleviate some of that personal financial burden. Also, workplace initiatives to allow caregivers to take that FMLA so that they are able to care for their loved one without the risk of losing their position at their work.
Yeah.
More 50% of caregivers do work full time. So having that workplace initiatives in place could really help those people.
I want to kind of end our discussion with a word and how you think that word should apply to this situation. A lot of times when we're talking about caregiving, we're talking about end of life or late in life care, and I think that the word dignity comes up a lot. How we think about that, how we define it, not just for the people who are receiving care, but also for the ones who are giving it. I want to give you just a little opportunity to talk about what dignity means in this context and how we make sure that that dignity is something that defines this experience for people.
Great question. I think you almost got me stumped there for a second, but I think dignity actually can come in a lot of different ways. And I think every population, young, old, ethnicity defines dignity in a variety of different ways.
Mhm.
But I also think dignity can be seen, especially for our aging population, is one, to not discount them. Even when they are maybe showing signs of Alzheimer's and dementia, they still are capable of making decisions based off of what they want. So making sure that their voices are being heard.